Mohammed Zaybek, and this is my interviewee, Mariana Preciado.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me a little about yourself?
I'm a grandma, and I lived during the Vietnam War.
Do you want to tell us who your grandson is?
Antonio.
Or A-Rod.
A-Rod is my grandson. He goes to North.
And so our topic today is about the Vietnam War.
Okay.
So, can you tell me, how old you were during the Vietnam War?
I was still in high school. I was still in high school. The only thing I remember was it was something that went by real fast for everybody because we didn't have all the technology y'all have, and we only had one small TV, and the news were really censored. So I was still a sophomore in high school. I had a brother-in-law that was, by the time I graduated, the war had intensified, and my sister married a soldier from the Vietnam War, and he was already on his third tour.
Wow.
And as soon as the students graduated, as soon as they turned 18, as soon as they graduated, they had to go sign up. And
They had to?
it was selective service back then.
Wow.
It was the draft.
Could you,
And
could you fake, I heard you could, fake, pretend to be, dumb or something, retarded,
well,
to get out of serving?
I think people didn't know the extent of the war, so they went anyway. Plus, it was a draft. You had to go sign up. As soon as you turned 18, you were gone. They shipped you out. You just went in for the 6 weeks or whatever military training, just to boot camp. And that was it. And you were shipped off. And it was mandatory. So a lot of graduating kids from my hometown. There was only 60,000 at that time. So can you imagine how many in my graduating class?
And where were you? What town or city were you in?
Okay, we were living close to Corpus Christi, Texas. It's a small town, Victoria. It's 60,000 people, and there was 2 high schools. And as soon as these kids graduated, they were gone. It was the draft. They had to go. And then after that, when we graduated, well, the girls, the ones that didn't join the service, we all spread out. Some of the kids did not go. That's where you hear the stories of some of the kids, they ran into Canada. They avoided the draft. A lot of the kids, young as 18 and 19, they just took off to Canada because Canada was one of the countries that opposed the war, so they were safe up there. Plus others, there was a lot of protests going on that you saw in the news, and it was easy just to mingle with the people, go to California. It was mostly protesting in the big cities like California, Ohio. I think you remember Ohio, Kent State, where the National Guard killed some 4 protesters, and protesting also. And but in my case, I had my brother-in-law who served 3 tours. He came back pretty wounded. He's Agent Orange. I have 5 cousins. And the sad part about the whole Vietnam War is that we would be standing at the funeral grounds, and we'd see a soldier all dressed up, honoring his fallen buddy, and the next week we'd be burying him. It would be somebody we knew.
Wow.
Because, well, small towns, everybody knows everybody, so we would be burying somebody we knew, a friend, relative, distant cousin. There'd be soldiers there that were getting ready, had come back. They were going to take off, and then a week later we would be buried.
Okay, so what do you remember seeing on TV?
There were some pretty bad pictures. I remember the soldiers' eyes. They were all these kids were 18 and 19. They were fresh out of their hometowns. They were just picked up, put over in Vietnam, shipped over real quick.
How long would they have training for the war?
just the basic training that you get normally, which is what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. You get basic training. They were shipped out. Most of these kids were 18, 19, young. Some volunteered, 17. And if you look at the pictures of the Vietnam War, they're lonely. You just don't. I don't like taps. I don't like what's that song, taps. I don't like taps. I hate to hear it because I heard it too many times. Taps, what they play at the funerals, soldiers' funerals. I don't like taps. I can't stand to hear it. And after that, we moved to San Antonio. And the coffee houses where the soldiers hung out from Lackland Air Force Base and all those bases, they would go in there, sing their songs like Joan Baez. The coffee houses, they were full of the soldiers that were leaving, and most of them were training for medics. They were training them as medics, which were sorely needed at that time in Vietnam because these soldiers just came back. Like my brother-in-law, he can't stand loud noises. I had 5 cousins that served, and they're also like mentally off.
All of them, or
yeah,
a lot of
it
them?
affected them because they were 19.
But how did the soldiers, when they came back, how did they act?
They came back pretty depressed because after that, America found out that the war was not necessary. Well, there was a lot of protests, like there were during the Iraqi war, but it's a different era. The soldiers, I had a particular friend that went in the Air Force. When he came back, they were booed. They were called murderers, child killers, all kinds of bad names. But the government sent him over, and he was only 18 when he left. But he said that he was so mad because he was crying. There was tears in their eyes, and yet the people were, calling them murderers and child killers and, everything. And he said he hated it, and like right now, they still have memories. My brother-in-law cannot see fireworks because he'll go, ta 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 ta, fireworks. He thinks one Christmas we had to chase him around our house because there was fireworks and he thought it was gunfire. He was hiding behind some bushes. So, it's funny, but it's not funny, and everything. And my other cousins, they all have, nightmares. It was an ugly war. It was for, impressionable kids of 18 and 19, and back then, it's like that song, American Pie. The day the music died with the Vietnam War. It was just horrible. And the coffee houses, they would go and sing sad songs knowing that they wouldn't come back. Or maybe they did, but from all around the country, Lackland Air Force Base.
Okay, so
They were happy.
My last question for you is, did you or did you not support the war?
I opposed the war. We tried to protest in San Antonio. I joined little bitty protests, and we wrote letters to the editor, but there were so many letters, but since San Antonio is a military town, we really didn't make much of a difference or crack it. But yes, I opposed the war because, like I said, I had, friends, my cousins, and it was just...
Okay, so you said you were opposed to the war. How long did the war last exactly?
Okay. It was on near my sophomore year. I don't know really when it started. I just remember
She doesn't know.
the sophomore year and my senior year. That's when my sister got married. And during my senior year, he was already back on his 3rd tour. And then after that, 2 years later, when we were living in San Antonio, the protests were going on there, the coffee houses, all the soldiers were shipping out and everything from Lackland. As soon as they took basic training, they were shipped out. So, the coffee houses was like their last stand, last time for their buddies to cry and pray you would come back.